You told me the latest on your staff being accounted for yesterday.
Yeah.
So where do things stand right now, and what has that been like?
Well, the way that Lahaina town is set up right now, there's essentially blockades on the roads. There's one road in and one road out. In, since we're an island, uh, you can't really just go through the middle. There's all kinds of mountains in the way. So there's one road, and the police and the National Guard have blocked it off, so no one goes into town and starts looting and just causing problems and stuff. So we're up here on the north side. We can't get out really. And anybody who's on the other side of town, more towards the center of the island, they can't come in. So emergency vehicles and anyone who's providing, food distribution and supplies and things like that, they can get through. But for the most part, we're pretty locked in.
Okay. So when it came to like accounting for your staff, that created some difficulties.
Absolutely. So we had with the really strong winds over the last week, even before the fire started, we had no power and the cell towers went down. So we were already without communication before any of this happened. And so as soon as we learned about the fire, just by word of mouth, uh, here they call it coconut wireless, um, which is kind of funny, but it's all secondhand information. You don't really know what's viable and what's not. But getting a hold of our staff has been the most important thing for us, and setting up the uh, cell service and Wi-Fi connections here has been able to allow us to get a hold of people. You know,
And what's the latest?
Everyone's accounted for. Not everyone can get here, but we're 100% accounted for. All of our staff is live and okay.
How does that feel
Um,
to now know
their
that?
their homes maybe not so much. We think about 15 of our staff has completely lost everything. Homes, cars. My best friends here had to run out of their house, leave their cars. They grabbed a backpack and their dog and they ran through the fire to get out.
It just came on so fast, it seems like,
Yeah.
without
So
really warning.
no warnings. Earlier in the day, there was a fire and supposedly they contained it, 100% contained. So all the fire trucks went to the other side of the island to battle another fire. And that left us completely without any protection. When they were able to come back, what we've been learning is that the fire hydrants were dry. There was there was no water supply in our firefighting system for them to even battle the fire if they wanted to.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
problematic, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. So we had a lack of trucks, a lack of personnel, and then no water.
What has your process been like since this whole thing started? The restaurant was temporarily closed, right? So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I had a couple days off and I was without power, so I was just kind of doing nothing, sitting at home. And then after like the third day without power, I was supposed to come back to work, and I decided to just check in on the restaurant early in the morning to see what was going on. That was Wednesday. That was the day after the fires. We had no idea that the fires even happened. So I'm just, bouncing around the restaurant, checking in to see, if we're going to open or what we should do about all the food that's probably going to expire. Um, clean up the walk-in coolers, throw as much ice in there as we possibly can to keep it cold. But then when people started coming in, the staff members checking in at the restaurant, we got a bigger picture of what was actually happening. So I stayed at the restaurant all day, outside, uh, working on little projects here and there, maintenance wise, but ultimately just to be a communication person, just to, as a hub, when people would come through to share information and receive information and be able to spread, what was going on. Then immediately my first thought is we have to get this food out. It's going to go bad. We have no power. the refrigerators are failing. So rather than losing thousands of dollars worth of, you know, proteins and vegetables and all kinds of already prepared foods, we're a fine dining restaurant. So we had some really nice desserts ready to go, you know, pans and pans and pans of macadamia nut, pineapple, bread pudding. So Thursday morning, we all got together, loaded up the charcoal grill and the propane grills, and just started cranking out as much food as we possibly could. We fed about 900 people on Wednesday. Um,
And how do you feed them all?
People just showed up, and then by word of mouth, they just kept coming. So we had a line going about 40, 50 people deep. We had as many to-go boxes as we could grab and just kept serving. Um, and then the community came together. Thursday, we got massive deliveries in from some of our retail partners and our distributors. Trucks came in. Someone donated us a refrigerated truck uh, filled with diesel fuel so we could have a nice cold area to store food. And they donated so much food that we were able to just and take out boxes and plastic, bamboo silverware and cups and things like that, so we could give out water and just keep making food. By Friday, we got our power back, so that made things so much easier. We were able, we didn't have to cook in the dark anymore or cook outside and get sunburned.
Oh yeah, tell me
Um,
before you got your power back,
yeah.
how were you able to cook the food?
So inside the restaurant was all dark. We had some battery powered like floodlights or emergency lights that our maintenance guy brought in from the Home Depot or whatever. He just had them on hand, and then headlamps and flashlights on our phones. So we're in a hot, dark kitchen just doing knife work and doing everything the old-fashioned way, no power tools. Uh, Most of our kitchen runs on electric, so we couldn't use it. So that meant prep all the food as best as we could indoors in the dark, and then bring it outside and cook on charcoal and propane. I moved to Seattle in 2019, and I worked for a bar restaurant called No Anchor Bar in Belltown, and I was a chef there, a sous chef. We were doing some pretty cool food, really rad beers, kind of like quasi molecular gastronomy food in a dive bar setting. It was pretty cool. I spent about 6 months there before I got an opportunity to work for M Bar. Um, and I got hired as a chef de cuisine, and my boss left, so that put me in charge of the whole restaurant. I stayed there for quite a while. The most interesting part of that was I started in September and COVID hit in March. So
Wow.
I got this big, beautiful restaurant ready to go with a whole new menu that was all me and all fun. And then everything changed. So we shut down for a couple months. Um, I ended up working for our sister restaurant, Mam Noon, in Capitol Hill. And we were doing all kinds of cool stuff there, working with World Central Kitchens, which is a pretty rad um, uh, charity that does the same thing that we're doing right now, which is just providing meals to places in need. So World Central Kitchens during the COVID crisis at Noon, we are making falafels and shawarmas and like box lunches and sending them out to hospitals and first responders and things like that. Uh, Once we were able to reopen Embar, I changed everything. Like the entire dynamic of the menu changed, all to small plates, like tapas style or meze, because it was a Middle Eastern restaurant. So all sorts of dips and little kebabs and ceviches and really cool small plates. Great for 6 foot distancing on our rooftop patio. Had a lot of fun with that. Um, that was a grind. So about a year or two later, I had already been living in West Seattle, and I found a really nice job at the Beer Junction in West Seattle. So I got to sell beer and serve beer because it's a bar and bottle shop, and it was pretty much my favorite job I've ever had. just to be able to explore the beer world and hang out with some really great people.